I would now like to introduce our next speaker. Edwina Fitzmaurice is the Global Customer Officer for EY Technology and has been named as one of the Irish American Top 100 Business Leaders. I'm delighted to hand you over to Edwina for her to speak with us here today.
Hi everybody, it's great to talk to you today. I enjoyed listening to the presentations and congratulations to all of you in the Undergraduate Awards. It's a fantastic achievement at a time like this. Great to see this whole event going ahead. So I thought what I'd do is share with you a little bit about my career and some of the lessons that I've learned along the way, and maybe leave some time for questions at the end. So my job now, I'm the Chief Customer Success Officer, Chief Customer Officer for EY globally. I'm also the Chief Product Officer, which means I have teams around the world. I'm based out of New York, although I'm originally Irish, as I'm sure you can tell from my accent. And as I say, I travel the world. I probably do, before COVID, I would do 150 days of travel. So I've been to, of course, Singapore, Tokyo, all over Asia, Shanghai, all over Europe, Africa, the States. And, you know, you learn a lot from those travels about how people are fundamentally the same while being very different, and the joy of the differences and the connections that you can make by working globally. So I want to share with you some of that experience. And also, I've been through a whole series of ups and downs between financial crisis, the boom and bust that's gone on, and some of the lessons I've learned from that. So I started my career, I did a computer science degree at Trinity College in Dublin. And my first job, I interned with Irish Life as a programmer. And, you know, I'd say getting off to a good start with a good internship. They had a boot camp program that really put you through 6 months of how to work and how to apply the learning from college. That was really important to me. And after a short time there, I went to IBM. And how I got the job at IBM, I joined the software lab, was somebody I'd worked with at Irish Life had gone to IBM and called me up and said, you know, IBM are recruiting, you might be interested in that. And, you know, one of the things I learned quite early was how important it is to have connections to people, because people where you're working well and doing well and teaming well and are a good team player, people like you to join their companies too. They tell you about opportunities that are going. So that was the first time that happened to me, and that was important. So I joined IBM, and I was in the software lab, and you know, my whole I was very kind of studious. I was very really kind of technical at that time. So I joined the software lab with a very engineering mindset. And we started doing some really technical work and difficult work, won a few IBM awards for that work, cracked the code on a few things. And so with that, I mean, I'm about 24 years old, and I was asked to be a team leader in IBM, which meant because I had technical credibility, because I had, you know, studied the problem and really, you know, technically helped to solve it, that was possible. So I had people working for me who were in their 30s and 40s. I was in my early 20s. And I think that's possible in an engineering environment because of that sort of technical credibility. Around 25, I actually met my husband in IBM and we got married, which was, and we're still married, I'm happy to say. But, you know, I thought maybe we were working a bit too closely together. So at that stage, I moved to Ernst & Young, as it was at the time, EY. You know, I got into being a consultant, a management consultant there. And that's where I learned really the art of wonder, what I would call wonder, curiosity and wonder. I realized working on lots of different clients with different complex problems is that actually there's a pattern to problems, and very often something that's a problem in one industry has been solved by another industry already. So I started to learn to ask the question of, I wonder has this problem happened before? I wonder, is there somebody I could talk to, something I could learn where you know, I can solve a problem like this. And this is where I really learned across all of these experiences, this idea that leaders are readers. Leaders are readers. And not all readers are leaders, but all leaders, I think, are readers, which is this idea of being curious, continuously learning, asking questions, connecting with people, you know, really trying to find out, because problems are just opportunities to be solved. So that was a big thing I learned at Ernst & Young. I was around 28 years old, and one of my clients was setting up in the Financial Services Centre in Ireland. Jacob Rothschild International was a client, and they were looking for a CIO, and they actually offered me the job. So I'm 28 years old, I took it, of course. So I become a CIO of a company in the financial services center. I get an equity stake. I'm on the main board. And that was a huge step up. And I guess the key learning for me at that time was when an opportunity like that comes up, say yes, which I did. I grabbed it with both hands, and I took on that opportunity, and I started realizing I needed to recruit a team. Now, at a young age like that, which I was young to get a role like that, I quickly realized I didn't have enough of my own experience. So I needed to hire it in. And a key thing I learned at that point was hiring amazing people, to hire teams who are so good and so strong, and to build teams around you that are great. And so that's something that's been with me all my life, is always to have amazing people on a team, people who are better than me, and then just let them be successful. So I've always thought my role as a team leader is to build an environment where other people can be successful. And even just as a team member, not even as a team leader, just create an environment where people can show up as their best self, and let them be successful and kind of get out of their way, really. So that's a lot of what I did when I was there. And over time, the Rothschild Group, we merged with Scottish Amicable, and I became the Chief Operating Officer there, the COO. And then over a number of years, by the time I was about my early 30s, we had kind of become Prudential Europe. And again, working out of the Financial Services Centre, and the CEO's job opened up. And again, I went for it. I decided I thought I had that was a great opportunity and I should go for it. So I went for that. And, that was externally recruited. There was a lot of, interviews in London, a lot of people in for that, but I did get that role. So by the time I'm in my early 30s, I think it was around 32, I was the CEO for Prudential in Europe. And again, same pattern: hire great people, build great teams, allow people to show up as themselves, allow them to be successful. And I always felt as any kind of leader, my job was just to set a vision, a rally cry, and try and help people just do their own thing really, really well and get out of their way. So I always felt I was working for my people rather than the people were working for me. And it always felt very kind of just part of a team. I played a lot of sports, so I always felt you just do your role on the team, and the team will look after itself. So very much around teaming. I had my first daughter then at that time as well, and we went on while I was working at the Pru to I think to launch some great products, to build some great work. But towards the end of after a number of years there, I was trying to have a second child, and I couldn't do it. I was having a lot of miscarriages. And I had to, I blamed my job at the time, quite honestly. I thought I was too busy, I wasn't giving home life enough attention. So I decided I would stay home. And so, I was about 38. I said, I'm going to give up the big corporate jobs. And I was also non-executive director on a whole bunch of companies. And I'd been the chairman of the Irish Computer Society, and also very busy. And I thought, let's give it up and stay home. So I learned a huge amount from this period of my life, which was I love my husband, love my first daughter, of course, but I didn't like being at home, and I was unhappy, and I missed work, and that was a big shock to me. I thought I would love being at home, but I didn't. So I started two startups, right? So I started I was into art, and I started an online art business, and I eventually opened an art gallery, and I also started a small IT startup doing sort of consulting work. The art experience taught me a huge amount because I met really creative people who worked for the joy of it rather than trying to climb ladders or even trying to make money. They were just creative for the sake of it. It was brilliant to be around people like that. I learned so much from that. But I lost a lot of money because I didn't really know how to run an art business. In the meantime, I had this IT business that was doing okay. It was doing fine financially. So I'm around 40, and I thought, what do I want to do with myself? I really have to make a decision. Do I want to keep doing these two things, or do I want to do something else? So I thought about my career, and I thought, when was I happiest? And what did I love? And I remember the time at EY, and I thought, I loved the complexity of the problems we tried to solve. I loved the variety of the work. And I thought, I'm going to go back to EY, which I did. And again, I kept in touch with people, and, thankfully I was taken back on, and I'm still with EY now. And I really love working for EY. It's a great company with a great culture. So I quickly became a partner. I quickly started running a practice out of London, the IT strategy practice, and then I moved to New York in 2011, which is nearly 10 years ago, with a client, because I was running major kind of client accounts. And I took over as the head of our business development and accounts for EY globally. So I've been on the EY Global Consulting leadership team for the last 6 or 7 years, and then more recently, I transferred to our, I'm now our Chief Customer Officer, Chief Product Officer for all of our technology business, and we're building out a kind of a whole new products and platforms for business, which is very exciting. So I'm back to IT. So a couple of lessons around all of that. You know, I started in computing. I went through a whole business, you know, transformation. I was a leader of a business. I was a non-executive director. You know, but then I eventually ended up back in IT, which is a lot of fun. So it just goes to show your career can kind of take you anywhere. A couple of the lessons I learned along the way, I would say there's a bit of a formula to my life, which I'm happy to share with you. And it goes like this. I think about it from IQ to EQ to CQ. And so the IQ is about, you know, using my brain. I was, you know, studious, worked hard in college, always sort of was a great learner, and I am a continuous learner. I love learning. I still learn. I do online classes all the time. I read all the time. I watch documentaries. I love learning. So there's something about, you know, looking after your IQ and, you know, nurturing that and making sure you stay fresh. So that was an important part of what I did. But I realized that hard work and being smart only gets you so far. So EQ is the next thing, which is actually realizing it's a lot about people and reading the room, being able to understand people's motivations, you know, being able to really kind of go to the core of teaming and collaboration. And that achieves so much. And so that's where I learned. The second thing, which is I'd say, is leaders have followers. How you know a good leader is not by all the work that they get done or the spreadsheets or the project plans. It's by the number of followers they have. So leaders have followers because people want to follow a vision, they want to get work done, and then they surprise and delight you. And then the last thing, which has come to me in recent years, is what I call CQ, and there's a few C's. The first is about curiosity, which I've mentioned, curiosity and wonder, and being really interested in other people and in the world. And, you know, problems are there to be solved. So opportunities are everywhere, and just being kind of curious about the world and seeing that. The second C, I'd say, is about connectivity and connections. We are all connected. Ideas travel at the speed of the internet. You know, there's so much capability in the world and so much that we can do together. And connections with people and connections with ideas and connections with diverse groups are so important. So I'd really encourage connectivity. And you talk about networks and boards of directors and all of those things. At the end of the day, people are incredibly important in a career, and having good connections and nurturing your connections, I think, is important. And then the last, well, there may be two more. Creativity. If you have all these connections and you're curious, it's great if you do something with it. And to think of yourself as creative, everybody's creative. And it's not just about art and things like that, but you can be really creative with a spreadsheet. You can be creative with a PowerPoint presentation. You can be creative in how you speak to other people. You can be creative in the environment you create around yourself so other people can be creative. And that's something to kind of nurture again in yourself. And the last thing I'll just say is composure. And this is something I struggled with when I was particularly younger. I used to get quite overtaken by my emotions. I could find myself stressed out or anxious or worried or, you know, angry and all of these kind of things. And honestly, that it just holds you back. So one of the things I've worked really hard on myself, and you hear me talking about it here, is bringing your best self to work. And I concentrate on my best self too. My best self is friendly and in a good humor and feeling creative and feeling good and trying to help people be successful. That's me being my best self. And I try to find other people's best selves and find that in them. So when there's something going on that is a bad event, bad stuff happens, right? Bad stuff happens. Is that I kind of really change and say, this is who I am. I know who I am. So I don't have to go around being angry. I am angry. I am anxious. So I'm feeling anxious, or I'm feeling concerned about that, or I'm I'm thinking that's a problem. So I separate myself from my feelings, my thinking, so that I know I can change my thoughts, I can change my feelings, and so I stay composed. You know, any kind of bad thing can happen. I'm not going to run around with my hair on fire shouting at people or being overworked about it. I just kind of go, okay, that is a concern. It really is. We should think about that. We should acknowledge that this is a concern, but we don't have to turn ourselves into it. So composure is the last piece of that. So that's what I think I might leave you with. I hope I haven't taken too much time, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Edwina, for your time speaking with us today. We have a question for you. So what is the biggest challenge in balancing work and family life as a career-orientated and successful woman? What helped you to overcome this?
I would say that the first thing is for me was always about values. You heard me making career choices to look after my family. I wanted to have children, so I gave up work to do that. So I've always put family first, and I will continue to do that. And that's never stood me in any bad way. And you know, even in an environment in work where I said I have to do things for my family, people respected me more, and it never got in the way. I set quite a lot of boundaries about my time. So there are times of the day that are for family time, and unless the world is falling down, nobody should book into that time. And if somebody does book into the time, the world would want to be kind of pretty falling down, right? I really try not to work the weekends at all. I turn off, I don't read my emails, and you know, if it's really, really urgent, somebody can contact me, but it would want to be really urgent. So I think it's just about setting boundaries and, you know, being flexible around that. But making sure you have your values straight, and that's what's been important to me. And I've never found that to be a particular problem in work. People respect it, and everybody has a family.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And a quick question for you. Do you have advice for people who are developing their network at the beginning of their career?
Yeah, so I would say, I used to think, you know, people say, go build a network. I used to go to these meetings and you'd see all these people you're handing out. In those days, we'd hand out business cards. And I never followed up because actually these weren't really people they were just sort of a lot of acquaintances or a lot of contacts. So I think the key thing for me was finding people who I liked, and also people who are quite different from me. There's one thing about you network with your friends, of course, but you also have to find people who are different, who have different experiences. So kind of seeking them out and getting close to them. And the thing about having a good acquaintance and a good network is you have to help people. You think a network is there to help you. You help them and they will help you in spades back. So you have to go into these things with a very generous, giving, kind of gracious acts kind of mindset. You're there to help them, not the other way around. If you have that mindset, all good things happen because you're not looking for anything from anybody. You're just trying to help them, or you're trying to see if you can introduce them to somebody, and that's helpful. So I would say, you know, think about that and get a right number of good acquaintances and put a bit of effort into them, and they'll pay back.